Ahoy, everyone, and welcome to the Book of Common Terror. My name is Ian, and I will be your host as we explore the shadowy realms of hauntings, cryptids, the occult, and all manner of other strange things. My aim is to discuss the weird and the eerie, primarily the sort experienced in the world we all inhabit and share, often called the real world. Although, as we go on, you will find that there are grounds for contesting that moniker. Fiction will figure in from time to time as well, but our primary focus is on this place where we all live and move and have our being. My hope is to throw some light on a dark set of subjects without sacrificing the exciting quality of encountering the strange, the mysterious, and the spooky. The biggest burden I would say I have for this channel is demonstrating how our world is only ever haunted. I want to talk about the startling experiences that people claim to have had, but I also want to examine the conditions of possibility for such experiences. I also want to show how these phenomena reveal something about us, and about the character of our subjectivity. And part of that means following the threads of religiosity that connect to all this stuff. My partner throughout all this will be the 1979 edition of the Book of Common Prayer. It is the prayer book of the Christian tradition of which I am a part, but also because it supplies an orientation towards the world that can be lived into. Indeed, that is the point of the prayer book, and it itself reckons seriously with the fears of its practitioners, as evidenced, for instance, in its collects for evening prayer, in which we are guided to ask God to defend us from the perils and dangers of the night. Because you'd better believe that those perils and dangers included things like ghoulies and ghosties, long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. This does not mean, though, that I'm coming to these explorations with a host of pat and pre-packaged answers for everything. Yes, the question of God and God's relation to the world, for instance, admits of certain answers that I would say hold true for this time and all others. But that is not to say that answers remain utterly static throughout the history of theological investigation, because every now is a new time to ask questions afresh in light of new situations, new problems, new conceptualities, because all these things lend something to the answering of those questions. And so there are certain points on which characters across time, such as Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, even down to little old me now, on which we agree, for instance, with regard to the God-world relation, but there are certain conceptualities that are not shared between us. Because, of course, Aquinas' answer to that question is going to incorporate a different kind of ontology than I would utilize in answering the same question. There will be similarity, robust, substantive, material similarity, but there are going to be differences. And so I'm going to apply some theological analysis to all the weird phenomena we discuss here, because I want to get at the depth dimension of all this stuff. And I'm going to bring my BCP with me whenever I visit a spooky location, because look, I want to come spiritually strapped. But I don't want to be a dingus about all of this. In the sense of ancient aliens guy, for sure. but also in terms of certain pitfalls that come with talking about these weird things that defy conventional explanation. Also, in terms of the pitfalls that often accompany just plain making things on YouTube. What's mom gonna say when she learns her son is trying to make a living as a YouTuber? That's why you haven't told her yet. Anyway, given these pitfalls, I'm going to make some promises up front, here at the very beginning, to keep me accountable and to serve as guardrails against becoming something I really don't want to be. So, first, I'm never going to use the phrase scientifically verified, or say things like science says, because science doesn't say anything. Science is a reification of a concept. Several disparate disciplines that share a degree of overlap in terms of the standard of study, the standards of verification, and a few other things. These permit us to identify this or that as a science. But that's the thing, a science. And science says presents this monolithic force that doesn't actually exist. And again, this is because the ancient and medieval concept of scientia has become frozen over time. It went from describing a habit of mind that was open and adept at learning things. And instead, over time, it's become reified into this supposed collection of knowledge, of facts, as if science is the one authoritative gatekeeper of all that is true. But human beings don't consult science as they go about negotiating reality on a daily basis. Science is a practice, and a corrigible practice at that. It's far too easy for us moderns to look with contempt upon subjects from the past and think, oh man, what a bunch of dummies. But you need to think about this. We mistake being surrounded by heretofore unsurpassed technological prowess with ourselves being enlightened and beyond our ancestors. As if my possession of a computer means that I am automatically and intrinsically more intelligent and more reasonable than someone from the 16th century. But folks, it ain't true. Because look, I want you to explain to the person that you're watching this with right now, how is what you're watching getting to you? And don't say over the internet. Explain in the most granular and nuts and bolts way how that works. I'll wait. Or explain how a particle accelerator works. Go ahead. Again, our inability, it doesn't mean that we're not intelligent, rational, any of that. The point is that we have the presumption that all of us are at the level of the gadgetry that we surround ourselves with. But it just ain't true. The illusion that is so, it's ideology. Okay? And ideology at bottom is our imaginary relation to the real. It's the way we try to deal with the sometimes traumatic contours of the real. Ideology is the mode of our everyday engagement with the world and one another, because we all rely on something to mediate concepts and to motivate us to get up and do things. So the divide, you see, isn't between science on the one hand and falsehood on the other. And if you buy into that, you have bought into a myth. And it really, truly is a myth. What you owe to yourself is to press pause, close out the app, and go out and buy a copy of Jason Josephson Storm's The Myth of Disenchantment. Again, I'll wait.
Many minutes later.
Okay, you got it. Great. So, here you find an extended narrative documenting how nebulous the idea of myth is, and how the account of modernity's advancement over and conquest of a superstitious past is itself a myth. There. Whew! Okay, that was a pretty long one. But it's big, because it's at the core of what I want to try to do here. But next, number 2. I will never, on pain of death, use the word content, unless I am criticizing the use of that word and the idea. It is so pervasive, but it is reductive. Content devalues the making of a thing. It unveils and leaves naked the commodification of making and its translation into an item for sale. One that is replaceable, one that can be thrown away, and a new one gotten with ease. So I'm not going to describe what I'm doing or what others are doing as content, because I want to believe there's something worthwhile in this. And I only strip it of dignity when I use language that, on the face of it, identifies it as simply the output of a meat grinder of videography and editing, that when I turn the crank, whoa, out comes content. Third, I will be cold in the dirt before I make a video where I am to the side or below someone else's video and I'm just pointing wordlessly at someone else's thing that they made. Because one, that is the height of lame, and second, it's theft. It's theft. Period. Fourth, I will never use the word journey unless I am referring to an actual instance of someone traveling a considerable distance from point A to point B. Journey is just an exhausted metaphor that conveys, at least to me, way too much mastery over one's destiny that I don't think any of us actually have. It implies growth that I think a lot of us don't actually make when we encounter hard things and try to deal with it. It provides a sheen of something positive, something that we have a degree of control over. But I don't think life is like that. And I'm not saying that it's all drudgery and pain. I'm saying that the drudgery and the pain are real enough that fallen and divided subjects like you and me, we just try to make the best of what we can insofar as we are able to. And there is dignity in that. But nothing approaching the level of self-mastery and control over destiny that I think is contained within that metaphor that is so pervasive in our culture. Next, number 5, I thought I would be able to get away with never telling viewers to like and subscribe, but every source I've studied, because yeah, I'm that guy. I read books about YouTube. Every source says that people actually do that. When you say it, it actually leads to those outcomes. So, yeah, not the first time I've been wrong, and I'm certain it will be far from the last. Here I assumed that it would be perceived as insulting to the audience. But apparently people follow that prompt with enough regularity that it actually does pay off to remind them to do so. But still, I will never use any cognates of smash that like button or tickle that notification bell or any hogwash like that, because look, I'm tired of YouTubers being extra, And I just don't want to add more noise pollution to an already weary and heavily polluted and carcinogenic atmosphere. And finally, I will never transition into a topic with the phrase, "let's get into it," because, man, the cringe quotient is already just so dang blasted high. I hope that the way I conduct this strange enterprise and guide you through the thicket of these gonzo oddities, that it will lead you to find a fraternity of feeling in which you can recognize that it's okay to acknowledge that the filters that screen out the weird and the eerie from our life world are perhaps a little more arbitrary than we've been told they are. I hope that what I do here and how I do it makes you think, okay, this guy isn't a dummy, he's not a buffoon, and he's not ready to believe just anything. But he is prepared to believe when there's something compelling about this testimony, when there's a pattern to occurrences, when there's a surplus to this that simply cannot be erased or ignored. And I hope that perhaps you will begin to lend a little more credence to the idea of the weird and the eerie as something that isn't so much supernatural, but is in fact woven into the natural, albeit in an uncommon and uncanny way. So buckle up for what could be the ride of your life, or really, really dumb. But I guess we'll find out, and I'm excited to discover it with you in something like real time. So stay tuned, and be sure to like this video and subscribe as we undertake this investigation together in the Book of Common Terror.